Smurf was a hardcore DJ. He used to play hardcore. And Smurf was so talented. He was one of the best mixers, best little DJs out. I didn't know nothing really about that scene, hardcore and rave. I knew that likes of Brocky and Koji used to go Biology and 88 and 89 and all them days. They used to go to all them big events. Brocky'd have his ticket pinned up on the wall like a month before, like ready to go. And he used to go to them, and like Brocky was diverse like that, and Koji, they used to like it. And obviously Brocky was in the sound with me. He used to play on my sound. He used to play a bit of rare groove. We used to just follow us about and help us and that, Brocky, Koji. And so Smurf, I got to know Smurf as well, and he's so talented. What he used to do in the old days of 88, 89, he would take his record box to like a great big event, and he'd wait, and then when the DJ's finished, he'd go up and say, oh, I'm on next. He weren't even booked. He used to just go on to play, because he wanted to play record, and he'd go and play, not ask for money or nothing. He'd just say, I'm on next, and like literally just get in there and play. But he was such a good DJ, and then his brother introduced me, got talking, and he had a couple of little stations, and they went down quite quick, because other stations were kept hitting him and taking his aerials and trying to get his rigs and all that. So in them days, I was quite a big guy, and I used to do security as well, this and that. And he knew I knew lots of people, and I had a lot of people around me. So he approached me and said, look, Phil, like, do you want to do a radio station with me? I said, well, yeah, because I used to do stations as well. Never put them on or nothing, but I used to like DJ on stations. And now and again I go with my friend Owen Grooves. He started like on North Atlantic Radio and Radio Grooves. Them days you used to just take a rig, go up in the lift room, put it on the side, not even lock it up, just sling an area and just leave it. Just a simple key in the lift room and leave it. No one would take it, no DJI would come and nothing. And I used to like go to his house with 3 crates of records and do like 8-hour shows. From young as I can remember, I loved the whole thing about radio where you don't have to look at it. You can be doing something else and listen to it. I love talking, and like the talk radios, you know, all different ones, LBC and whatever, 5 Live. I love them sort of stations. I would listen to Radio 4 or whatever, and when I'm fishing and nothing's doing, and I'll hear that, I listen to the Archers still. The other day, coming home from somewhere, my radio's playing up. The only station, the Archers were on or whatever it was. And I just love that you can drive still and everything, or you can be indoors cooking. I just love everything about radio, the whole idea of it. I've listened from a little kid. I was at school with a crystal radio and a matchbox, and we used to make them up. And I used to have it on like one little earphone in school, listening like behind the desk. Got it taken off me, I think, by the teacher. But yeah, I've always loved radio. So I think it might have been in the back, deep within me to do it. When we first started with Smurf, it was about D-locking. You know, a bike lock, a D-lock. A lot of times you go up in a lift room and like a shaft, Smurf might climb down the shaft a bit, only like say 10 foot down the lift shaft, and just D-lock it on the side of the lift shaft. And DJ wouldn't really go down there because they're not insured, and that we knew that they weren't covered to do them sort of things. Or they'd have to get great big scaffolding out and do it. So we got away with it like that for a while. But then they started getting them, and it was a case of a new idea. So what we looked for was concrete shafts. So we made up a jack, car jack, and boxes. What we put it in, slide it all down on a pole, like 20 foot long, tighten it up with a locking nut, and the jack will come out against the shaft and hold the rig into place, like 20 foot down. And above that, you'd have a plate over it with a locking key where a flap went over, so you couldn't even see nothing or get nothing down there. So that held out for a good few years as well. But then they got a way of getting them as well, so you had to step it up and put 2 plates and locks and that. One of the biggest things we ever done was we was in Nightingale Estate with Rush and Defection and Kool. And we'd had a lot of hits and this and that. So there was a top floor flat empty. Was it top or 19th? One down. It was either It was 21 floors, and it was either the 21st or the 20th or the 19th. I think it might have been the 19th. And this flat was empty, so what we did, we decided, right, it's a battle, it's war. Well, now we got to do that. So we put the 3 rigs in there, area was up. We spent 2 days getting concrete, sand and cement, metal, everything. And we literally, the front door, we left the front door on, but we concreted like 8 inches thick behind it, made a wall of concrete. We like put all iron bars and that in. And with the iron bars at the time, we tied them together with wire, with electric wire, just to hold them in place while we poured it. We shuttered it all and everything, done proper concrete slab behind the door, the front door. So we done that. So the only way in and out of this flat was to climb up the outside of Nightingale. So Smurf, Colin, Miley, whenever we had a problem, like if they turned the electric off, we had to get it back on, they'd go over the roof, climb down 2 floors on the outside of the building, and then get in the flat, sort the problem out, and climb back out. Definitely risking their lives. Sue's been with us when she went up there with Smurf, her and one of Smurf's friends, and they had to do a quick thing. And she went in the flat, and Smurf jumped on the balcony and went to go out, and she had to hold his legs. And she was terrified, like, and she said never do it again. From that day, she made him promise he'd wear a harness and that, but he never all the time. He wore one sometimes, but Smurf was fearless. He was fearless. I mean, he climbed up 3 or 4 balconies on the outside, going up, like, look, people were in their house, like, and he's creeping bars up the balconies, well, like Spider-Man, literally, you know? And that's how we did this, and we got away with it for, that flat must have run for about a good 10 months a year. So what they'd done, they had all the police and the DTI went there one day because they were wondering why this door wouldn't open. They bust the door off and there was this concrete slab. But at the time, they brought the television companies down and that as well and filmed it all. So I think they spent 2 days getting the concrete away to get in the flat. But by that time, we had took our rigs out anyway because we knew what they were doing. So overnight, we went and took the rigs out and moved them. But what it was, at the concrete, where we had tied the electric wires together, there's bits of wires hanging out. And now what they've done is told the television companies and the news that we put electric wires in there to electrocute and it wasn't. It was nothing like that. They even said we put glass bottles of acid or something in there and all that sort of rubbish. But it was nothing like that. And the wires hanging out the wall were actually just wires were holding the iron bars like this together. So yeah, it was a mission and lots of things like that we went through. When we used to get it at Nightingale, what they used to do was like, what was his name? Eric, I think. Big guy, big red face. He used to hate anything to do with pirates. And they used to snap their ears, this and that, and then throw them downstairs in the rubbish or in the skip. I used to wait, and I used to go and get it back out, because the bits I could use, they were very hard to find, centerpieces and that. Sometimes you go and get them easy, and they were only about $5 back in the day, but sometimes they were hard to get hold of. So I'd just go and get in there and get them back out. I remember I was in there taking it out one time, and he goes, "Oi, leave it alone." I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I'm a scrap metal man. So I'm getting some scrap here, mate. Piss off," you know what I mean? That was it, like, just little things like, he knew I was, I knew who he was, but I just said, "I'm getting scrap metal, mate. Mind your own business." And a couple of run-ins, but nothing special with them. Smurf and Dicer went up the block one day, and when they looked down, there was a police car at the bottom of the block, and they were like 20 floors up. He pulled the toilet out, and he threw a toilet system, like the pan, onto the police car, with 2 policemen sitting in it. Now, it's lucky it hit the bonnet, because they was well shook up now. I mean, that's terrifying, from 20 floors, a toilet hitting a police car. If it would have hit the roof now, it could have really injured them or killed them or whatever. Well, Sue, did you ring me?
I don't know if I rang you. I was there at the time, and we thought someone had jumped off the...
Yeah, we thought someone had jumped.
What had happened, within the year before, someone had committed suicide there already.
On that block?
On that block. So I was in the car because you always had to look out, and I always seemed to be the lookout at the time. So while we were sitting there, we knew the police and the DTI were there. And then all of a sudden we just heard this noise, and it was just so awful to hear it, because we just automatically thought that one of our lot had fallen from the flat. So we were panicking, and it took us about, I don't know, quite a while before everyone turned up and then explained.
And then what happened? Helicopters out. I think they got off, didn't they get away?
Yeah, they got out.
They got away, but they had helicopter. And from that day, every time we put an area up in Nightingale, the police would go up and take it down. Not even the DTI. We'd get hit twice a day in Nightingale, lose 2 rigs or something. So we had to, we had to move off of there, go somewhere else. Then later on we moved back when it had all calmed down, I think months and months later. Kool was one way, a new way, to bring DJs on the circuit. Before, you know, you had Ryder, you had Fabio, them man, they're original, and we love them. They're our mates. But there was no way in for Brocky, or like local people like that. We know the history of jungle and hardcore. We was there, and no one can tell us different, because we lived it, every part of it. And like, we helped create some of it, not just us. Everybody done their little bit. No one's the king of jungle. No one is the king. Everyone had their little different influences. Like with us, because of my reggae sound system days, when we come into this business in 91, dances used to have 2 MCs or 1 MC. And straight away I said, you know what, I'm treating this like my sound business. I'm bringing in Ragga Twins, Navigator, adding to it along the way, all different. Early days, Peter Banter come up down the thing, because he was on my sound as well. So when we done a dance, Jungle Fever, 2 years later after we started Kool, we brought Jungle Fever forward. And Jungle Fever was, I thought of Jungle Fever after the Spike Lee film with mixed relationships, and that's what it was all about, Jungle Fever. And I said, right, I'm going to treat this like a dance. Like, I'm playing at a dance, I'm playing another sound system, and I'll have all my MCs, like 2 a set. Every set had 2 MCs crossing over, like 3 MCs on some set. And it blew up. It went, people loved it, because it was vibes all the way, not just one voice for 3 hours or 4 hours. And then the likes of Skibbity come through, Shabba, all these people with a faster style. They started coming really through in 95-ish and that, and you know, they took over, like they were the second wave of sort of MCs. We had Moose and like Ragga Twins early days, Navigator, this and that one, Det. And then it was like a little second wave was like Shabba, Skibber, Icy Free, people like that, all these different names. So we have gone in sort of steps and waves.
And I was going to say how it's changed, that certain things that have changed. You saying that reminds me, when we first started out, for a good few years, when people were giving their shouts, what they would do, they would have to, a lot of them would go to the local phone box, phone up, say their shout, and then say, can you give me a couple of minutes to get back home?
Yeah, 5 minutes, yeah.
And then what they'd do,
write it down,
yeah, and then you'd have to give it about 5-10 minutes and then give the shout out, because they obviously weren't there to hear it. Nowadays, obviously, you can either
everyone's got a mobile. And
chat room, mobile, however else. So that's completely changed.
And in a way, how it started with our sort of internet and getting, not worldwide, but England-wide and Britain-wide, was people coming down from like Gloucester. Manchester.
The lady we met a couple of years ago, yeah.
Coming down, sitting in like Camden or Hackney and recording us, and then taking the tapes back up to Manchester.
And sharing it with their friends.
Back to Liverpool, wherever. That's what a lot of people did, you know, from say 93, 94 when it all blew up. That's what people were doing. And we didn't really know. And then someone would ring in like, and say, yeah, we come down and taped your set, we were in like Dover or whatever. And we're like, Jesus, man.
Or some of the DJs, if they travelled the country, they'd kind of like see people say that they've got tape recordings of their shows, and it was like, they
you know, they go up like, say, Derby, and the crowd would be singing the MC's lyrics, and like that's just because tapes got taken up there to Derby, and they know all the lyrics off the radio. So that was like an early sort of manual internet sort of thing going. And then obviously when it moved on, decided a couple of stations we saw coming on the internet. I thought, you know what, we've got to go down that route. We've got to get on the internet. Just one of the most memorable events, and the biggest event, especially going back to like '94, we done the Kool FM birthday party, 3rd year birthday party, and that was at Astoria. We had over 3,000 people inside, and outside they estimated around 4,000 to 5,000 people. But like when me and Sue drove up there, like late evening, it was about 7, I believe, we saw a queue around the block of the Astoria, and we'd been told there'd actually been queuing there from around 5 in the evening, Sue, wasn't it?
Something like that, yeah.
Remember? And then obviously we got in the venue, and I don't know, had a coffee or something, and then we found a little office. It was an office we found, wasn't it, upstairs? It was about 3 floors up. And we looked out the window there, and there was an alleyway where there was a club, milk bar, and that couldn't open because the alleyway, about 14 foot wide for like one car, was just from side to side, and the full length of it, a couple of 100 foot, was just people pushing and squeezing and couldn't get in. And we just looked at it, so we looked out there then and just realised what was happening. And as you look to the left, you could see towards Centre Point, and from the side of the Astoria, right across the Centre Point, was just people. Back and forward, right going down to Trafalgar Square, all got blocked off. And it was, because them days, with the old number, 0860 395 262, the old caller number, a call number, you could have it turned off for like a day. As soon as you put it on, it would ring, 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 ring. No matter what time, 3 in the morning, 4 in the afternoon, it would ring. And it was a realisation of how many people were listening to you and how the scene was getting so popular, you know. A lot of people said, oh, you should have done this at Wembley. We're like, really? You think we would have known what was going to happen? We didn't know. We didn't realise that the music had exploded that much into so many different people. But it was a really good night. I still remember now, Flirt, he wasn't a part of Kool them days. He was dancing on the tables upstairs, him and his missus. Like, I still remember little things like that. The stage at one point must have had 30 artists on there, just having a massive party, and it was like the whole place was electric. It was not one bit of trouble, nothing. The night went really well, you know. Brian G, Mickey Finn, Hype would just drive past and drop off boxes of white labels and that. So we had a lot of the music people, you know, come straight to us. And it grew where, like, you know, you'd have Hype up there, Kenny Ken, Brocky, you'd have all different people from all around the place. Like a community centre, it was like really a big meeting place for everyone. And I know that a lot of people would try and suck up to me or Sue or Brocky or just to get on the station or just even to play once. I've had people to me before say, oh yeah, I just want to play on Kool just once. I'm like, no, I don't need to play on Kool just once. I want people who are dedicated to what we're doing. It ain't about telling, oh yeah, I played on Kool. It ain't about that, you know what I mean? I've had people offer me a lot of money. I've had actually a person offer me £1,200 to do a set on Kool, and that was through a friend. He had loads of money, the guy, and he offered £1,000. I said, tell him, no, don't. And then he offered £1,200. And I'm like, no, we're not like that. We don't do them things.
I've started to say that Kool's like our baby.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's only because there are times when you feel like, is it time to just stop?
Leave it.
Yeah, leave it. And then when you go out to certain places and then you hear people saying that they've been listening for how many years, and you know, how much it means to them. And like the lady we saw from Manchester, and she was saying how she came down and did the recordings and that. And then you think, if you do stop, there's going to be so many people that are going to miss it as well, and that kind of like spurs you on a bit more to like carry on doing it.
People who say, listen, I've never texted a studio, I've never phoned a studio, but I've been listening since '91. When we did the White Cube, 2 different listeners sent me presents there, like for me to pick up, and it's like this one thing what meant a lot to me, and it's something which it sticks in my mind a lot and does make me want to carry on. It's like we had a guy in the chat room called Wolves. He was an Asian guy from Wolverhampton. Makes me upset. But was doing an event. He was always in the chat room. Nice guy, positive things to say. Really sort of nice person. I talked to him on the side sometimes. We got on well. And he goes, I'm coming down to Jungle Fever. We was doing a fever at Coronet, Elephant Castle. He come down and he brought me a metal figure of a DJ on the decks, like, you know, like a robotic sort of figure, like made out of metal, really nice and heavy on a thing. And at Eastman, he took me aside, he goes, I brought this down for you because I know how much music means to you. And I said, boy, thanks a lot. This and that, had a chat, he went away. A month later, he committed suicide. You know what I mean? Yeah, boy.
That was quite, obviously sad.
Yeah.
But I think it was his brother who came on. Contacted us and explained that the only constant in his life was Kool, and he always found solace in Kool.